Summer vacation is over. And so what does that mean for Bay Area real estate? We haven't done one of these videos in a long time, but we're going to be diving deep into some of the media and the news articles for the entire country. And then how does that actually play and what's actually happening with the Bay Area real estate market? Are there certain counties that are doing better than the others? Are prices still declining? Have they increased? How is this different than a few months ago or even a year ago? We're going to be looking at a lot of stats because for me, it's super important to remove the noise and help my clients figure out what is the best move they can make right now, whether it's selling their home, whether it's buying a home, whether it's just continuing to rent. Those are all options that people have. My name is Spencer Hsu, and this year alone, we've already helped over 45 families with their moves, which is a top 0.5% in this country when it comes to real estate agents. And every single now it's been a little bit less, but usually every single month or so, I go over a market update as to what is actually happening, but I also do a live screen share. So all the stuff that I'm sharing is from the back-end MLS database. So this is all of the most recent information that you can possibly get. So by tuning into this video, and be sure to like and subscribe, you're going to get a competitive edge because all of the media is actually a laggard, and I'm going to show you why right now. Let's look at some of the overall headlines. Let's go on CNBC. Let's just read some of these headlines. And this is all for the country. It's not the Bay Area. The Bay Area always has its own dynamics, right? Pending home sales tick lower in July as canceled contracts spike. Pending home sales drop 0.4% monthly versus 0.3% estimated. Housing affordability is a main issue, but there are some things. Entry level uh, entry level first time homes are the best inventory now. There's actually a lot of good reasons for that. Actually, let me comment on that right now. That's actually a very, very true thing, even in the Bay Area. Why? A lot of entry level individuals, especially in the Bay Area, uh, they may have visa risk, right? Like if they lose their job, they may not have one. There's a lot of new people that can't find a new job right now, right? And so that kind of demographic, that market is much less competitive than it was before. Those that are more established, they don't have much concern. They may have a green card already. They may have their job is pretty secure, or they feel that way, or they have a lot of money from the stock market already, right? So there's all these different things that impact that entry level first time market, which presents a good opportunity for those that are working, even maybe those in non-tech, right? A lot of people in healthcare, a lot of people in other professions that they're not as much of a risk. This is the time to enter in for those individuals. And so I have some of those entry level buyers that are doing that. Mortgage rates and demand remain stuck. They kind of have remained, mortgage rates have been kind of flat. There's hopes that, especially with what Trump is doing and what the Fed is doing, that there is likely to be a rate cut in the future. We'll see if that actually impacts mortgage rates, which it doesn't always do, but those are some things, right? Now, let's look at the general uh, stats. So I'm going to be pulling the data, as you can see, from August 2022 to August 2025. We're going to look at the Bay Area as a macro. So we're going to look at Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara County, right? So we're looking at all the kind of main hubs that people are usually going to be buying, at least in this core area, and take a look at the general numbers so you can see, all right, what is true, what's not true, how does this year stack with others because it's so important. There is seasonality. So when you look at the medium sales price, you can see there is seasonality. Every year, what does it look like to you as to the highest points of the year from a price perspective? You may see a couple of things. So if you look at this year, it was around May. Last year, it was May. The previous year, it was June. Now, if you think about this, this is all also a laggard, right? So if you get in contract for a place, let's say you're actively looking for a home in May and you made an offer, got your offer accepted, even though you got in contract in May, that was actually a June result, right? So as you can see, April, May basically is the busiest time and the highest prices of the year. But look what happens every year, right? Every year, as you exit out of the spring, prices drop. And prices drop not because of anything crazy, it's because of seasonality, right? People are on vacation, tons of people are traveling, people are distracted, right? So every year is the same. So don't like think it's anything unusual, right? So you look at this, June was the highest, it kind of dropped. May was the highest, kind of dropped. May this year is the highest, it has dropped. Nothing unusual. But the key is August is almost over. That's why I kind of wanted to wait till the very end of the month. August is almost over, not entirely over yet. It's August 30. It's August 30 at the time of this recording. But you can see, right, the median price point is still though higher than the previous years. So while it has dropped, which is true, the median sales point, the median price is still higher. Okay, 1.26 versus 1.225 versus 1.215 versus 1.116 from before. So every year it still has continued to have an upward trajectory, even though within the year it will go up and down. Now, what will likely move forward for September and October? That's going to be a great question. What has happened historically? Historically, you can see prices drop to an August low, right? August low because those are all July transactions. July is the peak summer busy time of travel, not of home buying. But then they usually come up a bit. So don't be surprised that prices may rise, as you have seen every single year uh, since, right? So very, very important to be mindful of. Very, very important to just be aware of. Like this is normal. This is not even unusual. This is just normal flows of the year, right? Now, there are some things I want to bring up though, right? Let's take a look at the number of new listings. So let's pull up the number of new listings and see how has that progressed, and is that the same? Because when people complain about lack of inventory, they're really talking about, do I actually see a lot of new listings? So when you first understand from a macro level, then you have to make the decision, is it your search parameter that needs to be fixed? Or is it a general macro thing? So let's take a look at that. It all depends on when you started looking. Because take a look at this. The number of new listings this year was the highest it has been for the last several years. Let me actually pull this back up. Let's go back to January 2021. Let's extend this range so we can see like how does this all fare out. So if you look at like this year, April was the busiest in terms of new listings. 7,053 total homes for sale like came on the market. You can see way higher than the last 2 years. This was a little bit lower, only about like 7-8% lower than 2022. And 2021, everything was a frenzy, so that's really not going to be as relevant. But you can see it's like a very high number relative to before. And you look at May numbers. May numbers were also pretty good. But you look at June. June was actually starting to slow down. Like it wasn't like that much greater than the last year. Same with what we have seen in July and August, actually similar to what we saw last year. Why did this kind of slowdown occur? Right? You have this big pop off, but all of a sudden then you had a lot less. The reason is this. There are a portion of there's a lot of groups of sellers out there. You have sellers that are selling because they need to sell for a life reason, and those are good situations, right? Like as in it's good for buyers because they're really able to go with the market. You have the other, which are aspirational sellers. If they can sell for a price that's artificial in their mind, they will sell. If they don't, they will delist it. That's why you see these articles that people are canceling. They're canceling contracts. They're like delisting it. They're giving up because the rental market has also done really, really well, right? So the rental market is some of the highest it has been. So a lot of these sellers say, look, I don't really need to sell. My cost basis isn't too crazy. I bet that thing can get better in the future. Let's just rent it and let's just see what happens. And I have many clients that decide to go that route, and that's okay. That's up to them. That's their money, their bet, their thesis. Let's see what happens, right? I show them the data. Everybody will make a decision themselves. Everybody has a unique situation that they got to figure out for their own lifestyle, right? So that's okay. So that's why you see what's happening because you can see it's not like an increasing amount. Now, the good news, though, if you take a look at history, right? September, though, does have a little bit of a bounce back up. Like a lot of people wait for the summer to be over and then they list the home in September. So there is a little bit of hope that there may be a bounce back, which this is a pretty good number, right? 6,000 back again. October has a good amount. And then things go off a cliff in the wintertime, right? So November, December, you can see January, right? Like January is okay, but November, December, complete off a cliff. 50% of listings, or less than 50% of listings. And in December, that's what, like 60, 70% off less listings. Okay. So don't just wait for a season to be active because you have no control when you actually like a house. But if you're not seeing that many, be mindful. Like this is still like a very high volume. So if you're not seeing at least, my tip is always this, at least four homes in person. Now I'm not saying to go see four random homes that don't work online. Four homes that you already shortlisted. It's not there's no deal breakers that you have noticed. If you're looking at like east facing houses, you already figured that out. You want to have a search that you're at least touring 4 homes a week. And then a good case is that you may make an offer at one home a week, or at least consider to make an offer at one home a week. That's considered a good search. Everything else is all opportunistic. Your choice if you want to do that, but usually I suggest people to expand the options and then decide and figure out like what is the right game plan from them, and is it a 1A, 1B, 1C in terms of like priority, things like that. That will save a lot of people a lot of time because remember, what is your goal? Your goal is for you're moving for some reason. Better commute, better schools, more space, parents aging, don't want to go up and down stairs, right? All these are really important factors to understand those options. Now, the last thing I want to bring up, and then I'm gonna kind of dive a little bit into like specific counties to see are there certain counties doing better than others. I think some people may be curious about that, and then we'll conclude. So, in terms of number of sales, so take a look at this. These are the number of homes that have actually transacted. So you did see before the number of new listings this year was very high, very high. But if you look at this, the number of actually transactions is actually lower than last year. You can see even now is lower than last year. So you have this good arbitrage right now. The new listings is good. The number of sales is not that good. You can see the number of sales this transaction, the number of actually sales right now is back to like 2023-ish levels. So it was actually worse than last year. So the volume of actually closings is actually worse. But you saw the prices doing okay still, right? You saw the prices still rise. So you're in this interesting situation, right? That you're going to get some good opportunities, but you also get a lot of sellers that are just going to delist. And that doesn't become on the market anymore, right? And so that's just really, really important. Like we cannot force a seller to make a deal with us. On our job on the buyer side, we will strike the best deal possible because we do not gamble on your equity. But at the same time, when it comes to trying to make a deal work, there are some homes that we're going to have to just let go and not even think about, right? Because if they're not willing to come down, we're not willing to come up. It's a dead deal. There is no deal. It's over, right? Like move on. Stop thinking that you can force somebody. It's kind of like going to a bar and seeing a beautiful person and you're trying to get connected with them. You can't force them to like you. You can do your best shot, just like we can do our best shot, but we can't force it and we just move on. There's plenty of other opportunities out there. And so that's the same idea, right? Like you can't force these things. So that's really, really important in terms of like what is actually happening. Now, what I'd love to do also now is let's take a look. Let's take a look at medium sales price again. So you see this in general has increased 1.26, but it's still lower than the previous months. Now the question is let's look into specifically different counties and let's see if they are all in the similar trajectory or what's actually going on. We'll start off first with Santa Clara County because when everybody gets so excited about tech and about all this money, about everybody NVIDIA being multi-deca millionaires and things like that, the key is, are they actually doing something about it? Like, is there actually anything happening? You can see from Silicon Valley, interesting change, right? The beginning of the year was excellent. $1.75 million was the highest point in April. And that was like higher than last year. But you can see right now, the drop has actually been really interesting. It's actually been even lower than 2024. Higher than 2023, higher than 2022, but lower than 2024. Interesting thing that has occurred where this has been a pretty big delta, right? That's a 180. So that's a 10% delta if you had bought something in April. So it's just the reality of what it is. Now let's look at some other places. Let's look at San Mateo County. Let's see how has that progressed. So for them, their high at that time was May. But if you look at the August numbers, while it's same thing lower, it's still much higher than those previous years, right? So San Mateo County has still been very resilient. Let's look at San Francisco. We don't actually hear as much things going on in San Francisco anymore. But if you look at San Francisco, it's kind of all over the place, right? And I'm going to break this down a little bit more because San Francisco has a big range of homes. when you think about single family versus condos and townhomes, mostly condos, condos can definitely impact things. Because if you look at the median, it's higher than 2024, but lower, interesting enough, than 2023. But that's also because you can see like a big range disparity. So if I actually segment this out, let's say you're looking at single family homes in San Francisco. Let's see how that looks, right? Actually, it's a similar story, right? $1.5 million. It was actually lower than the previous times. So interesting opportunity. What that only brings up is what does that mean then for the condo side? Are the condos actually doing a little bit better than before? Well, let's take a look at that, right? Condos have done a little bit better than last year, lower than 2023. So interesting kind of findings that you may have noticed of San Francisco when it comes to how their prices have reacted over the years. It's not like a straight up uh, that some people may be saying that there's a lot of people moving back to San Francisco, which is true, but everything is always going to be situational in terms of the right home. Now, if you look at Alameda County, you can see the numbers. The numbers are all fairly flat. Interesting enough, right? It's been very flat for many years now. So it's declined from the previous months, but it's still fairly flat through the last years at the same time. Let's look at the last two. Contra Costa County. All right, Contra Costa County, one of the most affordable counties in this area. Prices have also been pretty flat. Okay, and then let's look at the last one, Marin County. Are people choosing to live there? Is there a big boom in San Francisco so that people are choosing to live in Marin County or not? Well, let's take a look momentarily. Let's see how has Marin County faced versus these other counties. All right, for Marin County, you can see the numbers are actually quite good. You can see, depending on when you compare it to, right? 1.4 million. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure if this is really the case. I think it's been okay then. So sometimes when you have like really big blips, you might have to ask and question yourself, like, why was there such a big gap? Like, how did that occur? Right? So actually, I think it's just more flat and consistent, which actually falls in line with a lot of other the places that we looked at. This was a little bit of a blip. Like, why did like all this range, as you can see, is here? It's been pretty consistent, and why was there all of a sudden like this really low number, and then all of a sudden it spiked back up? So that's not that. That's a very unusual kind of number. So there's probably some either misrecording or there's some really inexpensive things that may have sold that may have impacted this. But in general, it's been pretty consistent. So you can see for most cities and most counties, the numbers have been kind of consistent through the years. Maybe there's some areas have had an increase. You look at San Mateo County, they're the strongest county right now, right? So they're the most competitive and the strongest county that is out there. Every other one is kind of consistent, not too crazy, but consistent. They're all generally they're all a decline from the spring season. So when you look at spring sales, you can put some discount if you got the exact same home today, right? But at the same time, don't expect a 30% discount. When things are cheaper, they're cheaper. So if you look at that, that was like maybe a 10% discount if you look at specific times of the year where it actually transacted. Don't pull things from January and assume a 10% discount, right? Look at when it was, apply the appropriate discount. Then you can find something. If you find something similar, you will have you have a new result. Right now, my goal is to help people save a lot of time. And I'm also helping a lot of buyers and sellers by being their partner. So I'm their agent, their listing agent, because they appreciate this data-driven approach. They appreciate all the other marketing strategies and all the ways for us to help people uncover the best deal possible for a buyer, but also still how do you try to maximize what you can from the seller side because transactions are still happening. So if you're thinking about making a move in the next few months, let's set up a time to talk. I'd love to do a Zoom strategy call with you, help you with your game plan, and then we can be partners together. You can give me a call or text at 408-547-4590. We can get you underway and helping you ultimately with your goals. Enjoy the long weekend. See you next time. Bye now.